So, hello. So I've never done anything like this before, really. There's a million general tutorials on YouTube for how to make, how to use each of these machines, but I more wanted to talk about like specifically what I do that I feel like is maybe unique, so that everyone who is watching maybe learns something, even if it's not, even if you don't have an SP-202 or even if you don't have an EM-1, maybe you'll just learn a technique for your DAW or something like that. There's a million different ways to make kind of like lo-fi beats, but for me, I'm not particularly good with computers or DAWs, so I kind of did it the old-fashioned way, and I went and I was on Craigslist a while, and I found these two awesome machines. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of walk you through because I would have really loved to have a tutorial like this back when I was starting out, to let myself know like this is a viable way of making music. Obviously pretty much everything that you can do is a viable way of making music. Hopefully this teaches you to learn some new techniques, or teaches you to, if you have these things, use them in new ways that you haven't thought of before. So without further ado, we're going to get to making drum beat, and then we're going to get to making layering some samples on top of that. Thank you. The first thing we're going to want to talk about is kind of how I make the drums using the Electribe, and then how I connect the Electribe to the SP-202 to make it do the things that I want. So essentially I got a MIDI cable, and this has a MIDI in. It's the only one it has. It doesn't have a MIDI through or a MIDI out, so that makes it easier. And then this has a MIDI out right here, and so I just put the MIDI out on the EM1 into the MIDI in the SP-202, and that allows the EM1 to control this. The SP-202, I learned that all of these buttons are all on MIDI channel 1. What you want to do is you want to take the synth part of the EM1. You're just going to want to take, whichever notes that you want to be able to play on this and put them to channel 1. Click on synth part 1. I make sure that I'm on pattern, and then pattern here, and I scroll all the way through. If you scroll all the way through and you're on the bottom two, it won't work. It just won't do it. So, and then I make sure that this little dot is on wave in the third little button, and then on the last one it should be on the MIDI channel. And so I already have it on 1, but the default is 16, so you're gonna have to switch it. This one as well, I have it on 1, but again the default is 16, so you'll have to switch it. I think I have something like basic booted up in here, like a little trap beat and a sample. That's kind of what the end product will sound like. For now, I'm actually just going to clear everything. The part of the synth that will trigger these notes to play is actually on the second octave here, and it starts at 3. Why? I don't know. Why it doesn't just start at 1? Who knows? But it starts at 3, which is source, and then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So the first thing I want to do is I want the tempo, because I don't want, the last one you just heard was a little bit more of like a trap beat with 16th notes. I want this one to be just like a standard hip hop beat with 8th notes. Change this wave to a snare. Great. And so, you can just walk yourself through a really basic drum beat like that. You can add some flavor in there, like... So I got all this on the background, and then what you can do is also add some accents. It makes it sound a little bit more, I don't know, I think organic. There we go. So now we've got this drum beat. Yeah, that's kind of the basics of how I just throw together a drum beat. I honestly don't really mess with any of the effect delays when I'm doing stuff like this, but you can, and I would say there are a million other tutorials if you're curious about how to do that. So let's move on to the SP-202 now. Stay tuned, and I'm not going to walk through how to just load basic samples onto that. You can find it easily. What I'm more interested in, going over my workflow once the samples are in. I've loaded some samples in here and I haven't touched them at all, so I'm going to show you what I do now. I have them in standard, not in hi-fi. You have to, when you're click recording, it'll blink and then you can click on this button to get them in standard. I find that I get longer samples that way and I'm able to mess with them more before it runs out of memory. So the other thing I will say is that when you do a basic sample, it'll be on trigger. Trigger's not great for what we're doing. So I switch everything into gate. Okay, so now everything's in gate, which works really well. You'll see with this. This is actually a piano cover of a song from Pokemon Black and White. Who knows? I changed the pitch around. The lower pitches just sound really full, and I can't even really recreate them in a DAW. The second thing I like to do is I like to reverse a couple things around. So what you can do is I essentially just put it in like this, but I don't do it with longer phrases. Like I don't try to sync a tempo up. I just mess around with what feels good and do it a little bit more like a puzzle, where I don't really hang on any of the notes particularly long. So in the end, it's pretty indistinguishable from the original sample that you started with. But I know that, there's a million ways to sample, and some people love to sample, really thinking about like a specific phrasing of a song and pulling it out and finding the tempo and stretching it the way that they want it to be. But that's just not really how I use these two machines together. Without further ado, I'm just going to mess with this. Great, so it actually ended up turning out pretty well the first try, at least to me, but again, it changes every time. Like it's hard to set the tone of what you're looking for. It's just, as long as it sounds like something in the end, I think that you've done it. So you can mess with the pitch some more. So like, you can mess with the tempo a little bit, as you just saw. Once you're at this stage, you can just kind of and that's how I make a beat with these two really awesome machines. Thank you.